Hello, family. Enchanté. This is your Sensei Al Bob, and this is a community notification for the family that next Sunday, a week from today is Sunday the 5th, and other than cleaning house and puttering around, it's really hot out, so I'm inside. I've tried to make this 6 other times before now, right? But everyone goes up to 18 minutes, and to try and upload that at the library would take me weeks. So this one I'm going to try and just stick to this to the matter, and that is next Sunday, 11 a.m. I'm going to do a live chat, and I'm going to be wearing my griot hat, my storyteller hat, and I'm going to tell the story of Olga Kluver. And if you liked Jimi Hendrix, if you liked the story of the old crone, this one's going to knock your socks off, because these stories, I'm trying to show you that what you think is reality doesn't exist. You know, that you are not your body. Your body is just a bag of water. Your true self is in a server someplace. I mean, we are living the Matrix. All the movies you see are real. They're just trying to tell you the 411 of what's going on. There's some little, esoteric need for the delusion and illusion of our material world to tell us. So the story of Olga Kluver. So, I grew up, my grandma brought me up from birth till around 6. I went back home with my folks in Freeport, and, it was like they parachuted me into a ring of wolves, and that's why I'm so close to wolves. I grew up with them. Anyway, and not being a wolf. So, bottom line, I was, 6 years old. I was kind of already formed, and my grandma was so amazing, and the culture I grew up from 0 to 6 was totally amazing. So I was aware of what to do, just say yes, sir, to my dad and stay away from my mom and do whatever the heck I wanted. And by the time, 10 years old, we moved, my dad really hit the big time money-wise, and we moved to a place called Old Brookville. And I was sent off to a seminary to be a Catholic priest. And then that's a whole nother story. And if you look at my other stories, a little bit of that story is in there. Even though I've done 80-something of these guys, they're all under, I have to kind of keep them under 5 minutes. Go back and look at them. Take notes, because there's a lot of stuff in there. And the more you can pick out, the more you can open up and realize that this isn't your life. You're being made to live this way through materialism, through consumerism. There is a cabal. It's not the Illuminati. That's a bunch of old guys doing a circle jerk with a secret handshake, but there is a cabal of different factions that manipulate and control our life, that cause wars and economic and physical famines and you name it. And so when we realize, when we don't control our thoughts within the construct of this illusion of materialism, when we open up our minds to the unlimited, I'm saying unlimited, we only realize 0.0005% of what is out there. People call it, that's dark matter, meaning they can kind of sense or, use instruments to realize, hey, the universe is more than what we think it is. But they don't let the common man think that. They want the common man to be controlled by what they're told in media and on the, what they eat and things that they need or want or anyway. Olga Kluver was none of that. When I was 10, well, no. When I was 10, we went to Old Brookville. When I was about 13, I went to the seminary. 14, I was still in private school, so I was never around. And my parents moved into New York City. So when I would come home for Christmas or whatever, I would, be in New York City. And I spent a lot of time in New York City with my grandma, so I was completely fine and comfortable walking around that place. I mean, I was walking around by my lonesome in New York City when I was, 8, 9. That was no big deal. And, I got, put into being an electrician at 9 and was working, not really working, but hanging with those guys, learning to be an electrician and taking care of Grandpa Stoll. And so anyway, we lived in really fancy. My dad wanted to always be a millionaire. He was a millionaire, so he lived in the fanciest of fancy apartment houses. And we lived in Manhattan House and a few other things that were right on Park Avenue, right? And big, fancy, built in the 50s, so that had that modern George Jetson look. And so anyway, again, as long as I didn't bother my parents, I could do whatever the heck I wanted. And Lexington Avenue started with, around 16th Street, Lexington started, and there's a park there, and there's a hotel there, and then it goes all the way up to Harlem. And on one side, there's 3rd Avenue, the other side is Madison, and then there's Park. And Lexington was like old Europe. When I was there in the 60s and 70s, my parents were, I just visited. But in that 2 years that I, staying at my parents' house before I got my own place, I'd walk, to work, and I'd walk down Lexington because there were all these great, like it was being in Europe. All these little shops and bakeries, and every 4 blocks it was a different nationality. And that's how I met Olga. I strolled into the shop that was like, and it was like, it said it was an antique shop, but no, it was more there's a name for it, a shop of things of interest, of things of occult and esoteric. And right next to it, there was a, not a Weiser's Books, but a place like Weiser's. It's called Antiquarium. Yes, that's kind of, those 2 shops were together. There was a doorway between the 2, and she kind of owned both of them. And upstairs was her little haven. And if you walked into the back of either of those shops, they came together to be part of her living room, and then this staircase that went upstairs. And so bottom line was I started hanging out with Olga, and Olga was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. My mom was a beautiful woman, but Olga was like, whew. And Olga was 4 foot 8 inches tall. And she wasn't a midget, and she wasn't a dwarf. She was an elf. She had those little ears pointed up, but she had really beautiful, long, red hair and green eyes, and her body was like, whoa. Now, when I went to, when we were I went to the North Shore school system, it was probably the best public school, in 800 miles, because it was modern, and they were using, they were trying to get the most out of every kid, right? It was almost a private school. They had, the teacher, student radio was like, 12 kids to a teacher. Everyone took art. Everyone took home economics and shop. And everyone played an instrument and was in the chorus. And in my shop class, there were girls. And I was in a home economics class, And I learned how to, my sewing and cooking were made more proficient. I could do both. Anyway, and that's why I had so many good friends who were female. Because I had friends who were female from grade school. I moved into the school district in third grade, and I was the odd man out. I hadn't made any, so all my friends were the odd man out, and so half of those friends were girls, because all the girls were odd man out, because they weren't guys. And the other side of the coin is girls were kind of catty, and so there was a good portion of the female community that weren't popular. They were in their own little circle, but they weren't in the conceived circle. And all of this kind of my exposure to my grandmother and her cultural dynamic and this public school really opened me up to look at things not as they seem to be. That everything was kind of a everything was different than what it was. Ooh, I'm at 11 minutes. So when I met Olga, it was nothing strange or different. She was just beautiful, amazingly brilliant. Could tell, that's where I learned how to be a griot. She was the first person to tell me what a griot was, and told me that I was a griot, and that she was going to be my teacher. And she taught me everything, not just how to tell a story. And like I said, I kind of experimented with my friends in middle school, my female friends, because they were my friends, and we felt safe with each other, and we were just, and we were taught, we took sexual education, and they really taught us sexual education. What, not, don't do it, but what it was, how you did it, what's going on, all the diseases, this, wear a condom, do this, do that. And they went into the emotional side. We did role playing. So when it came time to, go a little past role playing, these girls would say, hey, why don't you, and there was 4 of them who were my best of buddies, along with my 6 male best of buddies. And I loved all of them within the construct of Plato's Platonic love. Now, my buddies were like, hey, girls, not me, and we were doing other stuff that the girls weren't that interested in, but the girls were interested in sports more than my male friends were, and they had this hopscotch game that was just the bomb, and jumping rope I thought was really amazing. And other things they did were loads of fun. Like I said, I sewed. So I would sew with these girls and cook. So, and we fooled around. And so that's, so sex was not a big issue. I got the 411 from, my sex education. And, these girls were like an extension of that because they were in my sex education class. Oh, look at that. Why don't we try that? So, but that, I platonically loved my friends, but I wasn't sexually connected via love to them. And I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So when I met Olga, she was the first person that really did it for me. And she was 4 foot 8 inches. Didn't even bother me. Well, it's 13 minutes and 52 seconds, so I'm going to leave it there. So that's Sunday. You will get the real griot story, and hopefully John won't interfere. John won't mess it up. John won't try and steal it, take it for himself so he can monetize it. Because, John, all of those YouTubes that I've done with John, and they've all hit 60, 70,000, he's making a few. When I say, John, how much are you making? I'm not making any money. Well, I'm sure he's making more than nothing, and I'm living on $300 a month. John spends, I don't know what he spends, but from my observation, he probably spends $3,000 a month. Anyway, what I'd really love for you guys to do is go on his thing and yank his chain about why he can't, support me instead of keep throwing me out. Now, every time he throws me out, I have an amazing adventure, and it's, much more better. Much more better. I like that. Much more better than being with John. I meet much more better people, much more better, exciting of people. My adventures are much more better than they are with John. Because John is basically just the same thing over and over. Oh, blah, 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 blah. There's about 6 things that John goes on about. And you watch this thing, you can tell exactly what they are. He's freer to tell me the deeper side of those things because he feels guilty about what he feels. He feels that people are out to get him, so he can't say anything. Just like that last live chat when he went on about how, the main thing is to be nice to people. Well, he's never nice to people. Anyway, 15 minutes and 59 seconds.